thought I'd just show you a simple method to working out how much to trim off the bottom of your pots. These are the three stages that I go through when I get ready to trim the bottom of my pots. First of all, you have the finished piece thrown off the hump, and as you can see it's quite thick at the base, and a lot of that material there, a lot of that clay has to be turned off. So what I do, I made up a simple little method of being able to measure from the inside to the outside of where I want the bottom of my feet to be on the pot. So I put it up against this and I rotate it, and it leaves a mark to tell me that that's the bottom of the piece that I need to turn off, and it will still leave enough material there for the bottom to turn my foot. Now that's the first stage. The second stage is that you need to trim all your pieces to the exact height as per your little gauge that you've made here. And what that will do, it will leave, in this case, approximately 10 millimeters on the bottom between the inside and the other side of your piece. So you now know exactly how thick that bottom part is. So what you can do then is you can make up several gauges which will allow you to measure that distance from here, from the top part of the foot, to turn that out to make sure that you don't go through your through the pot as you turn the bottom part of the foot, bottom part of the inside of the foot. Now, one of the problems that you have when you're throwing off the hump is that you can't compress the clay. When you're doing the compressing your clay on the inside, you can't compress the clay right to the bottom. So what's going to happen if you have the bottom too thick? This clay that hasn't been compressed will create your S-crack. So to eliminate that, you need to remove a lot of this material to avoid that S-crack. And to do that, this comes in very handy to allow you to determine how much to turn off and how much is left to turn out for the bottom of your foot. And by doing so, you leave only about 2 to 3 millimeters of clay on the bottom, which will be, in most cases, will eliminate the S-crack from starting. So one way of doing that is that you need to make this little gauge. A very simple gauge, just made from material that I have lying around. It's got a little nut here, so you can slide it up and down. It allows you to put your whatever you made, and then you can mark it. Which means, what I do, all the pieces, once they've all been turned and I let them dry, I turn the base, all of them, exactly the same. So that means that when I go to measure the amount of material I need to remove, I can easily work it out by using this gauge, and I've got some measurements already worked out, putting that on the inside, and I have a line. Then I move it to the outside and do the same thing again, and I get the other line. Now that means that in this case I've got a good 10 millimeters of clay that is from the outside to the inside of this piece. So I know that if I turn off about 7 mil, or maybe a bit more, in this case it works out to about 7 mil. If I turn that off, it will leave me 3 millimeters in the bottom. Now it needs to be done when you're doing when you're throwing off the hump, because you can't possibly compress the clay this far. So it has to come off. Now once you've done that, then you can then turn the bottom of your feet. Now, to allow you to do that, I'll go through, this is a very simple little piece, plastic ruler with a hole. You can poke that through. This is only a chopstick that I just cleaned up, that I can put in. I can put in there, measure it, and put it out there and measure that, work out the difference, and then make sure I leave enough for the bottom, which in this case is 3 mil. This is nothing new, it's been done before. I thought I'd just show you what I do. I don't always do this. Quite often I just go ahead and just turn. But this is a good and easy way for you to make sure that you don't turn the bottom of your cup or mug or bowl completely out. So that's a very simple little trick. Use that. And of course, the other piece that you need to do is make this. So what I'll do, I'll go through it and I'll show you how I've made it. It's quite simple, very easy, and it will come in very good for making, if you're making mugs. You can mark out where your mugs are, how much you need to turn off the bottom and how much you're left to put your foot on. Another little gauge that I've made up, which is very easy, just a bit of a bamboo, and I've got something that I can poke. When I do this, I can poke that into there, and I know how far it is from the top or the bottom of the pot inside that I need to turn out. So there's the measurement I have to turn out, and the other one on the other side determines how far from the top or the bottom of the pot to where I want to turn. So those two little measurements makes all the pieces exactly the same. A very easy little trick, and it works really well. Now I've got to put these back under cover. So, what I have here, so that's the first one I made up, and it works exceptionally well. So, here's a bigger one. It works exactly the same. What I've done, to save a bit of time, I have cut all these pieces, and I've drilled the holes, a bit of 1/2 inch 12 mil dowel. Drill your hole in the into this, and this is only a piece of flooring that I had lying around from where we did the house extension. I drilled the hole to accept that doweling, smoothed all this off, make sure it's smooth. That will allow the pots to easily slide over the top. So all we have to do now is, and this can be made from anything, so it doesn't really have to be what I have. A bit of doweling, doesn't have to be that size, it can be any size you like. You need a piece of, in this case, a bit of 6 mil doweling, and what happens is that you have this, which I made up, hole in the end. This part will allow you to mark the piece. You can have a pointed one or a one the same shape as a screwdriver. It really doesn't make not much difference, but I'll use the round one. And what will happen with this, to save any movement, I'll glue this into position. You don't have to, if you can do this pretty accurate, you can probably leave it like that, and you can swap them over if you need. But I'll glue these in. So you can have, like I said, a chisel or have a point. The size of this board is not that important, it's just whatever you have. Now, what I've done, I drilled a hole small enough so I can get a tap, and mind you, this is only wood, so it's not that. It's only wood, so it's easy to do. To allow me to drill a hole and then tap. Now you don't have to do that. What you can do, you can drill a hole just smaller than the size of the screw that you're going to put in, and just force that in, and it will find its own thread as you push it into the wood. In this case I've used a tap and a tap wrench. And what I've done is I've tapped that through there. As I said, you don't have to. It's just that I have all this equipment on hand, so it's a bit easy for me to do. Now, what I'll do, I'll use some, so that's pretty straightforward, not very difficult. Drill a hole to accept the dowling. Now that will slide up and down there, and that little screw there, that little nut, that bolt that goes in there, all that will do is lock that on there so it doesn't move. So it's pretty easy to do, not hard to do. So what we'll do now, so that part's all done. What I'll do now is I'll use some Araldite. I'm going to use an Araldite because it's 5-minute Araldite. I normally use wood glue. Right. This is a PVA, it's Craft Hobby Glue. I pinched it out of the wife's sewing room, so she probably knows I've got it by now. But you can use wood glue. I'm using Araldite because this will take a lot longer to dry. So this is only 5-minute Araldite, so it won't take too long to set. Now, as I said, you don't have to use the materials that I'm using. Use anything you like. It doesn't have to be 1/2-inch round timber. You can use whatever. As I said, I'm only using it because I purchased it some time ago and I didn't know what I was going to use it for, but I actually have a reason for using it now. So, a bit of Araldite. As I said, you can use wood glue, that's not that important. And just make sure it doesn't go right through, otherwise it will rot, you'll have to clean it up. And then just use a square, an engineer square. Make sure that's reasonably square, or we can just use a plastic one. Just be careful you don't go right through with it. Right, so just try to see that square. Okay, that's pretty good. So then all we have to do, as I said, you don't have to, but in this case I'm going to use a round one. Alright, so a little bit of Araldite on that. And that will be good enough. So that's it there. And just tighten that up. You'll need to determine, you have to work out how much you need to take off. I've already done that earlier. So all you have to do now is put this in a position where it will mark your pot. So then all you have to do is get that, and then you can mark your piece, your work. So It can be also used, if you like, for maybe for doing lines of decoration. Right, so you can the glue's still wet, so it's moving around a bit. So you can see it easily marks where you need to work from or where to turn to. Alright, so there you have it. Pretty straightforward, not very difficult to make. It's something that you will use quite often, so it's a good little tool to have in your studio. So there you have it.